All right, and welcome back to another episode of Epic Epoch. I'm your host, PerryThePig. With me, as always, is my co-host,
Dread from Epic Builds.
Dread.
And
Thanks for
we're
being here.
joined. Oh, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no. Oh, no. Okay, we'll do some better organization next time. But we are joined by someone who is a longtime friend of the podcast and me and of Dread, but you might not know him. So let's give a nice warm welcome over here to SirFreeForAll. Free, thanks for being here.
Hello. Some of you know me as the mod in chat.
The one mod who shows up to my Twitch chat. So I remember the very first time that we had you on a different podcast a long time ago, I was nervous about bringing you on because like I didn't want it to seem like I'm only bringing on my friends but like you are one of my mods. I've known you for a long time. Played a lot of Path of Exile with you as well, but you've made a little bit of a name for yourself both in Path of Exile and in Last Epoch. So I want to introduce you to the rest of Twitch chat and to people out there who are watching on YouTube and Spotify right now. Who are you? Why might people know who you are?
Oh, in Last Epoch, some of you might not even know who I am, but you've probably seen the build guide of the squirrel build is what has been dubbed. It is a very min-maxed version of the squirrel using the squirrel helmet, and it's some great stuff, and it kills tier 4 Julera in like 10 seconds, so it's pretty good. In Path of Exile, which I have far much more time in, the Squirrel Whisperer, yes, which I have far much more time in, I usually am known for making some pretty insane items. Just same thing about min-maxing builds is kind of my thing. I don't really jump around with a lot of builds. It's more like one thing for the next 600 hours.
And it's worth mentioning that everyone's favorite divination card does come from you.
Yes, Society's Remorse. If you've ever dropped it and you're like, man, this card is awesome. It's got great art. It's got great flavor text. It does great things. It's from me, so you are welcome.
Thank you for making Path of Exile a little bit more fun to play. All those alterations really come in handy. So the purpose of today's podcast, I want to, for the most part, talk about leagues. And I figured that having someone on who's played a tremendous amount of Path of Exile in the past, and I know like you and I have played together, and Dread, you and Free are both playing Path of Exile right now pretty actively. And I've just been sitting on the sidelines watching a bunch of streams, making sure that I know what I'm talking about when I host this conversation. So let's ask, we didn't have a podcast last week because the launch of the new Path of Exile League, Sentinel League. What have you two been up to?
I finished the Shadow Dagger build, the Shadow Dagger bow build, the marksman, the concept with the Shadow String bow where you get like 2 charges of smoke bomb. I finished that up pretty quickly. I also made a self-cast smite build with Judicator, which ended up being pretty good. It's definitely the way to go if you're going to do self-cast smite, if you want to do self-cast for some reason. And then after that, then I started the league with a EK Chieftain because I wanted to play something off meta, and it's been wonderful. Recombinators are insane.
And I saw one of your YouTube videos went up. You think that Sentinel is one of the best leagues that's ever happened. So it seems like you're having a good time with it.
Yeah, I'm having a wonderful time in the league.
Sounds good. And then Free, how's your last 2 weeks been? Been playing some Path of Exile?
Yeah, lots of Path of Exile. So I started with Poison Spectral Helix like I ended with last league. Still as strong as it was last league. It's really good for the mechanic. I just re-rolled because I just got enough currency to cast on crit Forbidden Rite Occultist.
Ooh.
And now we're leveling that. I think I just hit Act 9. Sentinel as a whole has some problems. Mainly if your build off screens, your blue Sentinels are basically garbage, and your red Sentinels don't do anything. So it's kind of hard to use the Sentinels if you off screen anything. Tenki, somebody that we know, he's having a lot of trouble with that lately.
Off-screening too much is an issue because you can't juice up the monsters fast
right,
enough.
And so what ends up happening is you run in there without wanting to attack, you use your Sentinels, or you wait for your Sentinels to do something, and then you die because they take too long. And
Just play a worse build.
Yeah, I was
come
gonna
on.
say it kind of sounds like a good problem to have. Like, oh no, I'm too efficient.
See what I do. I don't play a worse build. What I do is I force myself to stop by using league mechanics like ritual, and it seems to work really well with ritual because you'll like buff everything. Legion too, and it buffs everything in the ritual as they're spawning, and then it drops everything at the end of the ritual. So since the fact that I'm stopping for the ritual, it actually meshes well with the sentinels, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm stopping, but
Fair enough. So I
Almost
guess
really good. Legion's really good. You just pop it right when you get there.
But before we get too far into it, I'm going to ask myself the same question. Like, what have I been doing for the past 2 weeks? And basically, I've been watching streams. So I've been like playing some variety games on my own time, doing a little bit of Last Epoch in the meantime, and really just like watching people play Path of Exile. It's not really a game that I want to play anymore. I've done, a couple thousand hours in it. I think my Steam is maybe 14,000, and then a couple thousand more than that in POB, and like a lot of stream time. So I've got a lot of experience in it. It's not a game that I want to play right now, but honestly, when PoE 2 comes up, I'm going to start playing it again. So I always like knowing what's going on in Path of Exile, because even though all of the articles online seem to frame Path of Exile as this small indie game that you should try it out, because it's like extraordinarily popular. And I don't know why all these articles still act like Path of Exile is like, oh, it's this weird game that you should try out. Like, no, it's an extraordinarily popular game.
I mean, if you compare it to Fortnite,
yeah, like, come on.
Like,
all right. I guess it kind of reminds me of there was a Twitter that happened a while ago. It was someone who was looking at Ninja and how many hours Ninja had in Fortnite. And someone was like, oh my God, Ninja's got 3,000 hours in Fortnite. No wonder he's so good at Fortnite. And like, when I see somebody who has 3,000 hours in Path of Exile, it's like, oh, so you hate Path of Exile. Oh, okay. I guess you never really played it, have you?
Nah, you played for a couple leagues. It's okay.
You played for a league or two. It's just like totally skewed by how much time people tend to invest in these things, like what the gameplay really looks like. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to talk about leagues, and we're going to talk about, how about leagues start? So leagues don't exist in Last Epoch yet. They're going to exist at some point. We know that multiplayer patch 0.9 is slated for coming to Last Epoch this year, and then 1.0 will be the multiplayer patch, and we're expecting to, I guess 0.9 should be the multiplayer patch, and then 1.0 should be the full release, where we're expecting a huge influx of players. So we have heard from the developers of Last Epoch that they're going to have a league cycle. We don't know what that's going to look like. In the past, I would have said definitely it's going to be 3 months, but they just changed their development cadence. So maybe it'll be 6 months. Maybe that's only for the short term. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air, but we know that EHG wants leagues the same way that Path of Exile has leagues, and it's going to be a live development game where every X amount of time, you're going to jump back in and play more Last Epoch.
It's proven to work.
I mean, I like it. I don't want to play a dead game. Yeah. I don't want to play a game where like all the strategies are figured out, and then like I guess I'm just doing something that someone else did. I like figuring out new stuff.
Come on, D3's great. What are you talking about?
It's like D2. I mean, we're going to talk about all these things, but D2 is like, it's been the same balance for like years, decades.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to go play D2. And it's like, oh, you're going to go follow a build guide that someone wrote 30 years ago. It's like, good. Have fun.
True.
So
I enjoyed it when I played. I have a few problems with it, but I did enjoy it when I played.
So let's talk about the league start. We know the 2 builds that you all have been playing. Have there been hiccups? Like what's been going on in Path of Exile?
I'll let SirFree go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I have not crashed one time for whatever.
That is very surprising.
I actually haven't crashed either.
League start was very smooth.
That.
I don't think I've had any issues with any lag or anything like that. And in fact, when it comes to glitches or bugs or something like that, I mean, there was some of the new Archnemesis mods that kind of got ported over weird and a little overtuned. They got fixed. One thing that happened yesterday that happened on a hot fix, and that so far I am the only person that I've seen this happen to. When I am doing anything in the game and I mouse over to my other monitor and I move it around, I have just like a light show happening on my PoE monitor. I have no idea why. It only happens on Wolcen, but I don't know. So other
Interesting.
than that, I mean,
Right.
it's been incredibly smooth.
Honestly, I'm pretty surprised to hear that. I feel like League start for me when I think about Path of Exile. I just think about like it's gonna crash. I'm gonna get kicked back out to a queue. Day one, like I want it to be exciting, but it feels more like an alpha test than anything else.
Oh, the last few leagues haven't been like that at all. They've actually really
Really?
honed
Yeah.
down on it. Yeah.
been pretty good lately.
So I've been trying to keep up on my own terms of like what's going on in Path of Exile. Can we talk about like Archnemesis mods real quick and how they've been
Yes.
patched 4 times? I think.
Well, I would say majorly patched twice.
Okay. So people have been dying an awful lot.
So good. No. So the new mods are very distinct, and I think the main thing that I have noticed is that it is much more clear to me what modifiers a mob will have when I look at it. Immediately I can tell, oh, that mob has magma barrier. I need to pay attention to not get blasted by its Vol Molten Shell. This mob has Consecrator. I need to, either pull it away or kill it very quickly because it's going to drop a bunch of stuff on the ground.
Or that mob has Toxic. Oh wait, I'm already dead because I was like reading something.
And it kind of fixed Toxic a little bit, but
Yeah.
So the new mods are definitely, I feel, more deadly than the previous mods, especially while leveling. The one thing I noticed right away was during leveling when I saw a magic pack, I was like, man, that's good XP. Now I'm like, that thing's gonna kill me. So I'm like, okay, hold on, chill out. I gotta figure out what mod that has first and then try to attack it.
Man, is leveling supposed to be that difficult? I thought the campaign was supposed to be like
purpose. It wasn't on purpose.
That's a great critique that I have been thinking about. So is the leveling process supposed to be difficult versus the map when you get to maps, or should it be like leveling is okay, and then as soon as you get to maps it's like bam, okay, here's the real difficulty spike?
Yeah. The biggest problem with the Archnemesis modifiers that I've noticed and everyone else noticed, like literally day one, especially because of essences. The biggest problem is when they were in Archnemesis, they had every single modifier you added to an Archnemesis rare, right? It would give them more health and damage, right? And that got ported over into the new system. So for instance, every single modifier you have is a more HP multiplier and stuff like that, right? And the problem with that is when you have an essence mob with 5 essences on it and 3 different rare modifiers, the multiplication kind of order of operation goes through the roof, and you end up with you end up with rares that might as well be their own pinnacle bosses.
I've heard people compare essence monsters with Archnemesis modifiers on them to like harder than the feared. I've heard some horror stories about people fighting.
So it's been dialed back now for what that's worth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
they also capped the amount of health that a mob gets per modifier, and they also capped how many maximum modifiers they've done a lot of fixing.
Okay, a lot of this was day one. A lot of this was just day one, like mainly that they fixed.
I struggled like I've leveled a ton of characters in Path of Exile, but I relatively had a pretty more rough time than I would expect playing Poison Helix, leveling with Poison Helix, than I feel like I should have, because the new mods are just that kind of deadly when you're leveling.
Like imagine the void area in like Last Epoch, like the one we all hate,
like the level 15 zone or so. Sure.
The whole campaign. Imagine that the whole.
I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a very scary thing. It's just way different than the game is right now. It's like I talk about diamond matrons every once in a while. I get like those maps in Last Epoch where you have like 20 diamond matrons or 20 like profane fleshes. They feel so distinct from the rest of Last Epoch, and like I hate it. But that's a big but. If that were the entire game, I might like that. I kind of like that kind of difficulty. Be a good time.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I don't know. I feel as if they would have just changed the things that were bugged and then just let it go for a couple leagues, people would probably be okay with it. They did nerf it a few times, and I hope that they kind of revert some things or kind of tweak some things, because I kind of like the game being a little bit harder. At this point, I've made like 70, 80, 90x or something like that, and I'm just flying through, just doing my thing, right? But
It's back to old Path of Exile.
People
now
are
that you're back used to it.
struggling.
I guess now that you're used to it, now that things have been nerfed. So here's what I want to talk about then. I'm going to use this as a segue into the, I guess, like the buffs and nerfs that happened early on in the league. So we saw some news posts from Chris Wolcen, lead developer, head guy over at Grinding Gear Games for Path of Exile, saying that like they did extensive testing, quote unquote, for the Archnemesis modifiers, and they thought the difficulty was appropriate. And then it's subsequently been nerfed, I think definitely 4 times since then. And then SirFree, you think that it's like maybe like 2 big patches and like
two major nerfs, and then 2 more kind of tweaks.
So here's my question for you then. Is a 3-month cycle, like, does that work for Path of Exile? Is that something that like Last Epoch or even a different action RPG that wants this kind of live development, is 3 months what we're looking for?
So here's my thing. I think that 3 months is too long. In a perfect world, 3 months would be too long, right? However, I understand the limitations of how much time they need to develop the next league and how much extra. It's okay, and plus, I think in a way it's almost done on purpose to kind of give people the time to have a break in between, playing Path of Exile for 300, 400 hours in a league, and then having a little break, and then they also don't feel like they need to jump right into the next league because they have maybe they play the league for 2 months, so they have a whole month to not play PoE.
Yeah, a very good example of this was the recent December events, because of the Cyberpunk thing, where we had December events for the whole month, and it was like a 4-month cycle instead of a 3-month. And by the time the league came, nobody wanted to play Path of Exile because we were playing all the events and we were tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's like too many things going on at the same time.
Love for what it's worth. I loved some of those events, but it was just like they were all void. It's not like nothing's going anywhere. Unless I'm competing, I don't really want to play. And plus, I don't want to burn myself out.
They're all back to back. I don't
want to burn myself out for the next league.
It's funny that you mentioned that they were void. So void is determined Path of Exile means that you're not going to accumulate any like wealth into standard. You're not going to bring your items over. You're not going to bring your currency over. Like nothing's going to transfer outside of that void league into your standard league. So it's not going to contribute toward that big project that you've been, working on for the past 5 years or so, trying to min-max how much strength you can get or something. So I guess when it comes to a league, it sounds like Void might be a deal breaker for you, Free. Like you want something that can roll over into standard later. Is that right?
So the accumulation of,
of generational wealth
are just having things, just hoarding everything. Now there's a /kills command that you can type in to tell you how many kills you've had. I want to translate those millions of kills into all the loot that I have acquired from them. And I like having like a little showcase thing on standard, yeah. So when I see like a league that like Endless Heist or we'll do Endless Delve, it's a better representation. So Endless Delve, right? I could have really, really went hard on Endless Delve and like really cranked it out and got like really sweet Delve items to put in standard and only focused on Delve for that 1-2 weeks or whatever it was. And then, had tons of fossils or accumulated a bunch of fossils. But instead, it doesn't go anywhere. It just disappears. It's gone.
Because Delve was voided, right?
Because it was voided. They were all voided.
Gotcha.
See, I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm not... I don't like standard. And especially in Last Epoch, I don't like it either. I don't like the feeling of having everything... Like, I like starting fresh. That's why I like leagues. That's why I like leagues mainly, is starting fresh and stuff. So I never really care if something's voided. Like, for instance, if everything was deleted after I was done, I wouldn't really care. The only problem is like, how would I test stuff without stuff in standard, right?
I guess a content creator, you're kind of stuck in a corner in that regard.
Yeah.
I hear you. So I've been asking Twitch chat my own questions, and I post polls on Twitter every once in a while just to try to get a vibe check from people who aren't me, because like I'm an outlier, right? Like I I make content, I stream, I do the podcast, do YouTube stuff as well. And like I'm not the average player of any video game that I do, right? So when it comes to what you look forward to in a new league, I tried to get a vibe on this. So I asked Twitter, so like, what do you most look forward to? And I only have 4 options, don't have too many things, but so I listed buffs and nerfs, new skills and items to play around with, new content to explore, or like a fresh economy. So the answers that I got on this were, it sounded like most people were looking forward to new skills and new content, like new things to do. And not so many people were interested in skills getting buffed or skills getting nerfed. Does that seem like it jives with you as well?
I could talk about it if you want. I with that, it depends on the kind of player you are, of what you want. So for instance, me, I really, whenever I do play Path of Exile, like I play a lot, and it'd be the same thing with Last Epoch too, right? I just play as much as humanly possible, and that's because I'm hardcore. I want to play as much as possible, and I want the nerfs, the changes, and stuff like that, in the new economy. But as a new player, I mean, as like a casual player who just plays for a week or so, they usually end up wanting the stuff like that, like the new skills and all that, because it's like the new shiny. And that's not bad by any mean, right? Like everyone's allowed to do what they want, but that's generally what happens. And that's why new stuff is generally like what people want, is because they're usually more casual. They want to like hop in for a week, have fun with this new skill with like mana bond, realize it's terrible, then like reroll, like stuff like that. They want to it's the discovery aspect. While SirFree and I are the kind of person, or like, we want to hone down this one specific thing and like, I don't know, conquer it, I guess is a good word, like get really good at it. So when new stuff comes out, we're not as, excited, if that makes sense.
So Free, I guess same question to you. We were talking about like, is it buffs and nerfs? Is it new skills and items? Is it new content? Or is it a fresh economy? We were saying those 4 things. What are you looking for when you're playing in a new league?
So, if nothing changed in a league, if nothing at all changed in a league, no nerfs, no buffs, no new league, no nothing, except for a whole fresh and new economy, everybody just restarts from that, and I could probably play that for maybe a month. Just in the aspect of that, I mean, that's my game right there. Manipulating the economy and buy selling things, crafting items that are for meta builds, doing things like that. Very early league stuff, even like 1 month in. I could do that for a whole month. Past that, I do enjoy the new league mechanics. If nothing was nerfed or buffed, I'd be totally fine with that. If there's a new league and a fresh economy, I can play that for the entire duration of the path of however long I normally play POE for a league, and be totally fine. If they never nerfed and buffed another thing in my life, I'd be totally okay.
Interesting. So actually, that's just what happened with Sentinel League, right? There were very, very few changes outside of like obscure bug fixes with like Flame Wall and whatnot. Nothing really changed between last Path of Exile League and this Path of Exile League. Has that affected how you two are making money, or like what mark are you trying to like to manipulate, or like what crafting you're doing, maybe what build choices you have?
So for me specifically, I don't know about you, Free, but there has been Atlas changes. So there are like different, if you don't know, a lot of keystones were added to the Atlas, very strong ones, like Stream of Consciousness specifically, that allow you to gain money in a different way. And that's like changed how I'm going about getting money right now. Now, for the choosing of the build, I like this because I already know what's good, right? Like we already know what's good. Like, what is good, we know this, right? Now, my plan is to find what can we make work with all this new stuff, right? Like like what kind of wacky stuff can we get away with all this new stuff, with ashes, crystallized omniessence and stuff like that, right? Before it eventually gets nerfed into the ground. And that's what's been driving me, is trying all the funky new stuff, all the funky stuff that no one else ever tries, because they don't usually have the time to, because they're too busy playing the builds that are good, right?
Now we know that in the Last Epoch, we've heard from the developers. We're not quite sure what trade is going to look like when trade finally gets implemented. At one point, Last Epoch was going to have some kind of bazaar where you could page through things like ads in a magazine, or maybe it's only like trading with people who were there when the item dropped, like immediately in your party. We're not really sure what trade is going to look like, but we have heard that if the economy is your main interest in a game like this, Last Epoch is probably not going to appeal to you in that way. So that's like the most telling thing that we've heard, which is to say, we don't know much. Is an economy, like, how important is an economy to like a fresh league start?
So, I mean, there's a non-zero amount of people that strictly play SSF, including you, Perry.
Mm-hmm.
And this change is going to virtually not affect them at all. And I think that's interesting to think about when it comes to, because a lot of people have been playing a lot of people have been playing Last Epoch for such a long time now, and it's only been SSF. How is that going to port over for the people that normally play SSF and then are now introduced to a trade economy? I think it's going to take a while for most of the people to get used to the fact that they can just buy something. However that works, as far as how important it is, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell with how much we really know and don't know about the trade system. I think in general for ARPGs, economy is important in my aspect. I just don't know how it's going to work in Last Epoch.
As long as it's not just like a Path of Exile standard league and then a new mechanic is introduced to it and you can bring all your items with you can bring all your currency with you. As long as that doesn't happen, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's like, just delete everything, give me a fresh stash. Let me go find my basic idols again. That's what matters.
I want.
One thing that I wish Path of Exile had more of, and I wish that more ARPGs had more of, is permanent upgrades that are not like player based, right? So I think like, unlocking the Scion. If you didn't know, you have to unlock the Scion in Path of Exile.
For all you brand new players out there, yeah.
Once you have done it one time, you have that unlocked forever. I wish that there was, even if it were League permanent items, like for instance Legion. Once you do a 4-wave or a 4 war Legion, you get 5 slots on your map device. I wish there was something like, do this thing, kill Shaper and you get like a permanent portal button on your stash.
So you never need to use a portal again. Or a portal scroll.
You just click it and then done. Or just like a spot to put them, and you can stack up to 5,000 of them right there. I think that that's something that's really interesting that I wish more games had.
It actually kind of reminds me of like the conversation between roguelike and roguelite, which to me is a pedantic conversation, which I totally hate. But technically speaking, a roguelite, Lite, is like, it has a little bit of continuation between each individual run. So things like Hades is a great example of a roguelite. Like a roguelike, Like, like there's no carryover at all. So it sounds like you're looking for like a few more, like maybe like player profile based things, kind of upgrade over the duration of, I guess, the league is what you're saying? Or just like of your entire account?
I wish that like the first time you killed like Uber Elder, right? Then it's a new boss that came out. Super Uber Elder, right? You get like a free stash.
I like the word "ooh elder." Thank you.
Ooh.
I will never say that. I wish that you would unlock like a stash tab or something, even if it's like a not a trade one. It's just like a regular run of the mill stash tab.
Yeah.
That boss is incredibly difficult and less than like.
That's kind of what the fancy hideouts are, right?
Yeah.
Like the Shaper hideout and stuff. We do kind of have it, just not enough of it.
You can kind of flex just a little bit.
I love.
But then you could just buy it in like
that Shaper has that tiny fraction of a percent that when you kill the Shaper, you have a chance to get the Celestial hideout. That's so sweet. That's so cool to me.
I'm into it.
I think these games could afford to have more things like that. Small little things.
Like unlocking empowered monoliths and then not having to do it on a subsequent character.
Like if you've killed like
Yes, exactly that.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you've killed like if you killed Herot like 1,000 times in Age of Winter, like you get like a special, I don't know, something special.
It changes like your stash, right? It changes your stash into like something, cool.
Or you get like a portrait or like something like that. I don't know. Like something, right?
Interesting. And like I guess, are you only looking for cosmetic stuff?
It could be in game
because like
stuff
you could have
as
like
it's,
+1 all attributes if you kill Herod 1,000 times.
I think that.
What do you mean, like permanently, or just like for your character?
For the league? I think if it was stat based like that, I think it should only be a per league basis. I don't think it should be like a permanent thing all the time.
Yep.
I hear you. So
anytime because time is also, you should not have any advantage over any other player just because you put in 1,000 hours of time. You have your knowledge, and that's it.
You mean 1,000 hours of time before this new league starts?
Yeah, that's what we mean. Like no crossover like that. That's why the cosmetic ones are always so great. Is because it's like, it's
so like somebody else might have a better strategy than you. They might know how to get through the acts without dying. Maybe they're faster than you, but they don't have any like stat advantage over you at the beginning of any new league.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's how it should be.
Hopefully so. I don't, maybe I just don't have enough experience in games in the action RPG genre outside of, I don't know, the handful that I've played. Are there games like that where like you can league start in a new like live development game that updates every 3 months that you just have an advantage because you played longer? Is that a thing?
There's
got to be some bad game out there.
PlanetSide 2.
I was gonna say PlanetSide I think has something like that, and in my opinion, if Diablo 3 doesn't have it, I don't think it's that common. So, Diablo 3 would be the one to where a new league would come out, and you'd have some sort of advantage. Well, I guess there's like the loot.
Just wait for Diablo 4.
Yeah,
baby.
you just it'll happen.
Yeah,
if you can't imagine it now, it'll happen. All right, so we talked about a couple things here, and I guess I want to open it up a little bit before I jump into any other topic. So regarding leagues, like league starts, league development cadence, buffs and nerfs, things like this, I want to ask, like, when Last Epoch finally introduces leagues into the game, what can Last Epoch steal from Path of Exile? What are the gems from Path of Exile that we can take and just like incorporate those into Last Epoch?
Uber bosses.
You mean like skills or just like ideas?
Things regarding the leagues is what I mean. Like maybe league mechanics, or maybe just like the 3-month development cycle. Maybe like whether you think buffs and nerfs in like the first week of a new league are good or bad.
I wish there was more ways to craft in Last Epoch.
Yeah, I think that'll come over time.
I wish that there was certain things that you could do. I mean, your crafting are, your all of your normal crafting, and then like your dungeon stuff, right? That's the crafting
with legendary items. I mean, that's about it right now.
Yeah,
so I mean, compare that to Path of Exile, a game that's been around for like more than a decade at this point. A lot of those crafting options from PoE have been league mechanics.
That's what I think. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is like I think the league mechanics should be the thing that bring in those new crafting methods and have
essence fossils.
Because
essence fossils, a million billion ways to craft in PoE.
One thing I want Last Epoch to get from Path of Exile and keep it is, that feeling of how like when you play a new Path of Exile league, 99% of the time, the base game itself is the same and the league is the thing that's changing the stuff. You know what I mean? Like for instance, you could craft like your normal way, like we normally would craft this league, or you could have some fun with recombinators or whatever, right? And I think Last Epoch should follow this thing where like the base game should be like the starting point, and then the league should be the expansions. Now, sure, you could add the league stuff in, right, if you want to, and make it part of the base game. But the base game should stay the same, and the league stuff is the stuff that like goes off the wall, right? if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So for a long time in Path of Exile, I guess, man, what was it might have been like 3.0 was the changing point for this. But for a long time, standard in Path of Exile was the league that you were supposed to play if you were a new player. And those 3-month leagues were experimental things. And if they went well, they would be rolled into the core gameplay loop of standard. And if they didn't go well, they'd get tossed out. That's what leagues.
Though,
that's what leagues were for a point in time. And like nowadays with Path of Exile, you're expecting that every single league is going to be rolled into the game. And when a new player comes in the game, they are ushered toward the league, like the softcore league, as opposed to playing in standard. Because standard, you're playing like 3 or 6 months behind. So like, is that something that we're looking for in Last Epoch as well?
So
yeah,
I'll give you a good example of a way to not do a league system, right?
Do it.
Wolcen.
All right.
Go on.
Don't know.
And for those of us who never downloaded Wolcen, what was the bad thing about leagues in Wolcen?
So Wolcen does have leagues if you haven't played it in a while. It's really the only thing that they change. They don't add any other additional content. They don't add to like you can now do this with items. You can now craft in this way. You can now interact with this. It's literally just killing new different mobs, and that's it. That's all it is. It's the same game except for you kill different mobs in this special altar thing, and that's how 3 have them been. Not just one of them, 3 have been this way.
Well, before we go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
To me, that's a very bad thing to do, just because you're just resetting the campaign to just kill mobs in different ways, and there's no extra anything. There's nothing else.
Killing mobs in different ways, I like that. Yeah. I want to like find a new build or use a new item or use a new interaction.
There's none of that. There's not
but like,
no new nothing.
It's not in new ways. It's just new monsters.
Yeah, it's new monsters.
So there was a comment in chat. So they're like, this probably won't get read. I'm joke's on you, I'm gonna read it. But with PoE, the main thing they try to do is let players decide if they want to interact with the mechanics, and they don't force you to do it at all. Except intervention.
I was going to say, like, for
correct.
a long time, that wasn't their
motto.
motto.
Most of it. That is correct for most of it. And that's something like Last Epoch should probably take as well.
Do you think that that's a good idea, allowing a player to jump into a league and then just not interact with the league mechanic?
Yeah, if they don't want to.
I don't know if it's okay to do right away. I think the first couple leagues for Last Epoch, it would be healthier to kind of have it be more in your face to kind of just show like, this is kind of the new stuff, and because the reason why Path of Exile can get away with that a lot easier is because there's so much to do in PoE.
That's just the content bloat over the past decade. I've never thrown
You're not
anything out.
expected to do it all. Well, a lot of people throw around the content bloat, which actually was a comment in chat as well. And I'm actually going to counter this with saying that you're not expected. You're not expected to do everything, if that makes sense. Like, for instance, right now, I'm focusing on, like, Ritual and Delirium. That's all I'm doing. All I'm doing all day is doing Rituals and Deliriums. I'll do, like, other side stuff every so often, but I make plenty of currency. I'm almost, I think, 3/4 of the way to an Ashes. Like, I have currency, and I'm doing well. You don't have to interact with everything to do well. Like, most of the time, it's better just to focus on 1 or 2 things, and then, make currency that way. Yeah,
what I tell new players is PoE has a million things that you can do. Find what you like, and you are allowed to focus on just that one thing. Especially now, because if you don't know, there's now points on your atlas that you can put that say your maps no longer have expedition encounters, but you have a 2% increased chance to get other content.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that for Abyss, Delirium, a lot of different things. So you can kind of pick and choose. I really don't want to do these kinds of content. I really want to do more. And then you can get that node that Dread was talking about where you can't put scarabs or anything on your map, but you have a 50% more base chance to get other content.
Free stuff, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Now, this doesn't really work well in an SSF environment because it's like, I need a delve craft to get this specific modifier. Well, you're going to have to go do delve. You can't have someone else do it for you, sadly.
It makes me think about like FOMO Like the fear of missing
Yeah,
out.
fearing missing out. Yeah.
Or
I
like
can see that,
maybe
yeah.
the fear that you're not min-maxing the right way. And maybe Ziz has figured out the perfect strategy, and Mathil figured out the perfect strategy, and your favorite YouTuber figured out the perfect strategy, but their strategies all incorporate Expedition. And you don't like Expedition, but they said it was the right thing to do. I wonder if that kind of thing should be codified into a game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's definitely a very big fault of certain content creators. I'm not going to go into specifics on any names, but I will say there are certain content creators that say this is the correct way to do things.
To be fair, though, there is always going to be a meta as well. Like, there is going to be a specific way of creating currency that's going to be better than everything else. But you are correct as well with what you're saying.
Yeah, so if somebody goes on and says Delve is the best thing and you can make 30 exalts an hour, and if you're doing anything else, you're doing it wrong. I think that's unhealthy. I think the correct approach is saying, I did a lot of Delve this league. I got like 15 to 20x an hour. Here's what I did. Here's how you can replicate this if you want to, but you can do other things if you want to as well.
And
I haven't gone into Delve at all this league. I haven't even touched
Me
my
neither.
right mind.
I haven't even touched Delve either, yeah.
I want to move on to another topic, but I'm gonna like maybe change it up one more time before we move on. So if we're talking about money making strategies, we've said that there were no major balance changes, except for like major bug fixes between Last League and Sentinel League and Path of Exile, but they introduced new ways of manipulating your maps, of using your Atlas skill tree as well. When you say things like I did Delve and I made 30x and so can you, those money making strategies, is it important for those to change up from one league to the next league?
Yes, very much so.
It is pretty important. So right now, one of the best things that you can be doing with your time is expedition logbooks. They're strong.
That was
They've
last
always-
league too, right? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
And it was the same thing last league. That's what I was going to say. It was the same exact thing last league. Expedition logbooks were extremely good. That's kind of what I've been doing. I've been doing some other stuff too, but it's definitely good with your time. But with that being said, it's almost marginal that you can be doing other things and be making just slightly less and having 10 times more fun.
As long as you're smart about it too. You can't
I
just
think
go
it should
willy nilly.
Do I think it should change every league? Yeah, absolutely. I think and another thing is when you say no buffs or nerfs, it's not super accurate because mobs were changed and things like Legion are extremely scary because when you pop all of these rare and magic mobs, all of a sudden they have all these wicked cool new modifiers, and you have to deal with that in certain ways that you maybe couldn't do it with even if you're playing the same build, you couldn't do it the same exact way.
Like for instance, like a very popular build right now, like explosive arrow ballistas right now. They usually play a elementalist, and if you don't know, that build is very, 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 very softcore minded. Like, I have 6 portals, I'm going to use them, and this league was really a lot worse for them because of that versus last league, because of the fact that like they were dying way more, like a lot more. So it's like, but it was really good last league because the rare mobs, they just fell over and died. And
So even
essence
though the
mobs
build
too.
hasn't changed at all, it's
The
like the
meta
content
has
you're coming up with.
changed. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. So
And
I
that's
asked
a good
you,
way of going about it too.
I asked you, what are the
Right?
kind of things that we can steal from Path of Exile and incorporate into Last Epoch? We talked about a couple. Are there things in Path of Exile that like are like lessons learned that we should not incorporate into a future game like Last Epoch?
Picking up organs, every single one.
Having to net and having to
Oh
net your
god!
beast
Oh,
when
the
they get low on health.
flashbacks of
Right
dealing
now,
with
Sentinel,
necromancy nets.
Sentinel, how like my build's too good to enjoy the mechanic.
I have
That's
a
another
good
one.
I have a good one for this.
Yeah, tell me.
So realizing when to get rid of old leagues or old content. Prophecy was in the game for so long and was generally not super fun to interact with. You have your certain strategies, and they could have very easily did what they did and just add it to maps, add the uniques to the base game, add the crafts to certain unique maps. Long ago, this could have happened eons ago.
Them trying to remove bloat from the game is a very recent thing.
Yes, and I think that's a mistake. I think they should have paid more attention to getting rid of the older content. To keep it in a way more fresh and more kind of modernized.
So let's think about an example in Last Epoch real quick. So things that have been in the game for a long time that were just kind of tossed in as a temporary alternative endgame solution.
Arena.
So let's talk about Arena. What would Last Epoch look like?
Same thing.
What would Last Epoch look like if we didn't have Arena? Is that a core piece of gameplay to have that ladder there?
Lizard be like half as popular.
Poor Lizard.
I'm just kidding. I love you, Lizard, if you're here. No, so I think that instead, I would kind of go the opposite way with it. I think that I would give you more incentive to do Arena and kind of make it tie into the base game. And there's been ideas of how to do this.
They tried.
So we've said on stream, and we've had this discussion before, but just as a reminder, what we're talking about is what I'm talking about is after getting to wave 200, right? Your minimum corruption is now 100. After getting to wave 300, your minimum corruption is now 150. Certain things like that kind of tie into your base experience in your monolith, which I think is the large majority of the game and that you should be paying attention to, not Arena, is a good way to tie them in a way that you feel like you're not wasting your time just doing Arena.
It feels as though you're reading my mind. Let's take the perfect segue and talk about something that happens both in Last Epoch. I guess it will happen in the future in Last Epoch, and happens right now in Path of Exile. Let's talk about new content and new leagues being integrated with old content and old leagues, as opposed to feeling standalone. So Dread, you and I touched base on this real quick before this podcast started, and we were trying to think of what's the best example for this. And we said maybe Lab is a good example because Lab is, it's been there for a long time. Everyone's familiar with it, but it doesn't really tie into the core gameplay loop of the end game map grinding. But we actually come up with an even better example than that of something that just doesn't feel like it ties into the rest of the game.
It doesn't feel like Path of Exile. It feels like something other than Path of Exile.
It feels kind of like a door simulator, yeah.
PvP.
You know those Disney movies like The Little Mermaid, right? Imagine The Little Mermaid being Path of Exile, right? The direct to DVD movies, like the Little Mermaid 2, whatever. I remember that one. Yeah, that one. That's Heist. That's Heist. That's Heist to Path of Exile.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Just like
Little Mermaid 2 is Heist. I'm with you.
Yeah, I know it's a weird thing, but it makes the most sense in my head.
So
I totally understand why they kept it in, but it's certainly a league that could.
It would have been hard to incorporate all the uniques, everything into it without actually incorporating it.
Gotcha.
So they could have very easily added. Well, I said very easily. I don't want to say that. They could have found a way to add all these replica uniques into the game, even if it was done over time, even if they were repurposed into other uniques with new art. They could have got rid of Heist.
Yeah.
And it would have been fine.
I think what they should have done is they should have just got rid of the Rogue Harbor, got rid of the coins, and just make the actual contracts just mini unique maps. Just make them act like unique.
Just maps you put in your map device.
Yeah, and you just do it.
Oh, that sounds so much better.
I think that's a good shout. I think the shout of not having to spend rogue markers not having to worry about unlocking wings on a blueprint.
Or maybe make it kind of like a hierarchy where, like, as you do these contracts, like your next blueprint will have these many wings unlocked or whatever. Make it like a progression, but make it so you don't have to go to the stupid freaking Rogue Harbor every single time.
So back in the day when I played Path of Exile, I would always reference Bestiary as one of the leagues that I think got integrated best into Path of Exile. Because at the time it was garbage and you had to use nets and you had to not kill monsters, and then Cute Dog made everybody use necromancy nets because he complained too much, and it was garbage, right?
And then immediately they nerfed the crap out of it, and then it was useless for a bit.
Bestiary was not implemented into core in the immediate next league, and then it was introduced like 1 or 2 leagues after that, and then it's been slowly toned down over time. And Bestiary, I think, did a really good job of trimming down and getting rid of the fluff and focusing on what's really important. Einhard shows up, there's a beast, you kill it, extra rewards, and then like only the most important crafts got rolled into the main game.
And then you have the rare one, like the rare beasts, like the way they did the rare beasts, and they're just tokens that you use for the crafts, and then the red beasts are the special ones.
And I think Synthesis was a really good one as well. So Synthesis as an example of like, it was a really complicated league when it was first out there, and then right now it's been tremendously trimmed down. Maybe like 10% of what it used to be.
It's a great integration.
And it's perfect. That's all you need. Just a little bit of flavor there.
So, Ultimatum League has still not returned.
You make that sound like it's like Gandalf the White. Ultimatum has not returned yet. We're being destroyed here. We need it back. We need Hateforge back. Please make Melee great again.
Please no. So with the new Atlas skill tree in Path of Exile, the Atlas skill tree it affects the rewards for X, Y, or Z league mechanic, but when you look at the Atlas skill tree and what's available for like Delve, the only things that really show up there are like your Delve gives you more Sulfite.
Yep.
But like it doesn't tie into that core gameplay loop of what's going on the rest of the time.
I think Syndicate is the perfect foil to this, where it actually incorporated it the correct way, while Delve did not. Because Syndicate, like, you have stuff like the whole thing of Syndicate is the intelligence thing, right? Like swapping members around, all that kind of stuff. And Syndicate has the best way of incorporating versus like Delve, where it's just like click on node, get sulfide. You have ways of manipulating the intelligence, or if you just don't even want to do the whole mechanic itself, you could literally just grab the node at the top of the tree and just get a bunch of intelligence every single time you do a map, and that's okay too, as long as there's options. And I think that's the perfect way of incorporating it, where it's like if you do this special thing, you'll get different ways of getting your intelligence. I haven't done Syndicate yet with this Atlas, but I know the nodes are like that.
So let's bring this back to Last Epoch. Is there something in Last Epoch that kind of feels not attached to the rest of the game, that kind of brings you out of the core gameplay loop and you're not sure whether you're supposed to be doing it?
Dungeons.
Obviously. Dungeons? Maybe dungeons?
Yeah, dungeons.
Dungeons are a little bit weird. Dread, can you tell us about how dungeons tie into this?
So dungeons tie into this because this is actually a topic that the community's been having in Last Epoch, about how certain mechanics aren't tying into the main game, i.e. the monolith system. Now, the dev response is they like the fact that the dungeons aren't things that you farm all the time. They're just the side piece of content that you go and do every so often. Now, the problem with that is you either don't do it and forget about it, which most people do, because usually it's not worth your time unless if you have a build to do it specifically, or you go and focus on it, but then you're not grinding blessings, you're not grinding any of this stuff, you're just doing dungeons, right? You're not grinding for the uniques from the bosses, you're just doing dungeons. And that's all right, but you're going to have a very small amount of loot versus like just doing monoliths instead.
I think a caveat is so there's definitely a time and a place, right?
Yeah.
The time and the place for dungeons. I feel like dungeons shouldn't feel like I'm just going here so that way I can put, smash these two items together with the, the legendary. I don't want it to feel like I'm only going there for this. the best example for me was that I farmed Julera for the gloves specifically. That's the only reason why I was in dungeons. I skipped every single time. I skipped making a legendary item.
I've done that a lot
I didn't
too.
need to.
Yeah,
I was just
when I was
there for the
farming
gloves.
Vessel.
And there's certainly a time and a place to do dungeons, and I haven't, for what it's worth, I haven't really looked at the new dungeons that much. I have.
It's okay; they're pretty much the same. It's the same thing, just.
But I don't want it to feel like I want to go do the dungeons just to get a legendary. I want most of the things, like in Path of Exile, most of the things can progress. You do this in maps, you're still progressing in your maps. Lab is a good shout because you could do lab farming. Perry did lab farming for a long time in the early Path of Exile days. You're not progressing your maps at all. You can drop maps in there, but you're not running them. So you're very detached from it in a way that lab is very similar to dungeons. You can go there, you can do your enchants, and that's basically all you're going there for, unless you're doing it for the first time to ascend.
And that's our complete list of side content that we felt like wasn't particularly well integrated into Path of Exile. We talked about lab, we talked about heist, we talked about delve. Just like these like kind of alternative endgame things. You can farm them for a bit. But I think our main complaint when it comes to Path of Exile there is like these things aren't part of the core gameplay loop, and they feel detached, and when I do them, I'm not also doing anything else. So does dungeon need to tie in more? Like one of the examples, actually, Dread, you mentioned this a second ago, and I kind of like it, so I'm going to say it again. You said like, what if instead of going to the Rogue Harbor to activate one of your new God, what are they even called? Syndicate missions? No, they're not syndicate. Contracts.
I have an idea.
But like, what if you just put it in your map device? Then you're still in your hideout. It's like one map, one contract, one map.
But then that ruins what the devs want. They want it to be in the campaign.
They want it to be like
a part
cosplaying as part of these people in Path of Exile. Sure.
Yeah.
Free. You said you were going to say something.
I have a good, interesting idea. What if there was a dungeon boss that has, let's say, a 25% chance to drop, well, maybe not that much, but it has a 5% chance to drop any unique from any monolith boss, but it will always have at least one LP.
I don't think that would work well, because then you just do that pretty much.
It's an idea. I don't think it's a good idea, but it is a very dynamic idea, and I like where you're at.
The dungeons have always drop with their one LP, right? And how many monolith bosses are there?
There's a lot.
So if you're specifically trying to farm for, this or that, or maybe it's even like an increased chance that it has LP. Because it could be a very easy way to get at least one LP.
I mean, what you could do is just have the dungeon instead of doing that. You could just have the dungeon have a blessing thing, like it's like a consumable. You right click it on your monolith.
Blessing is good too. Yeah.
Well, it's like a consumable blessing, and you use it kind of like a twice enchanted, where like the next unique that this boss drops has LP on it or something like that. I don't know.
You want prophecies that you farm from the dungeon, and then you go kill a monolith boss.
Well, yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think the main point of what we're talking about is finding ways to tie into
the dungeon
the main game.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of the talking points that we had 2 weeks ago.
I know,
it's because we had McFluffin on the podcast. There's so many good tie-ins to that conversation. Yeah. I guess chat, if you're here watching live or if you're on YouTube or Spotify, go back and listen to the episode we were talking exclusively about dungeons in Last Epoch with McFluffin. There's a lot of stuff there that ties into exactly what we're talking about right now. But I think we're just about at an hour, which means I'm going to try to introduce one more topic. It's always, you get to the 1 hour mark and it's like, okay, how much longer can we go? I want to talk about something. I want to talk about something we just learned about today. Apparently today is Worldwide Bee Day. So
happy Worldwide Bee Day.
Yeah, apparently. Great. FreeForAll, have you looked at this news post from Last Epoch? Yeah. So we have bees, chat. And I don't know how to feel about it. I need someone to link this in chat in case no one's seen it live as well. But we're going to go pull this up and take a look at bees.
Bees.
So we have 2 new unique items. Let's see if I can post this there. Oh, thank you. Appreciate you posting that.
In September.
So what are we doing with these 2 unique items? So the first one is something that comes from Hunter. Hunter is in Twitch chat all the time. If he's here, Hunter, nice item.
Oh, nice.
And this is I guess both of these are supported unique items. So like someone paid and then worked with the developers and they came up with this. So let's talk about item number 1. Let's talk about Hunter's item. This is called Bloodkeeper's Nest. And I'm just going to read off a couple of the stats here so that if you're listening, you know what's going on. So this is a unique relic, level 70. Got to be high level for it. The implicit for this thing is plus bees per 10 seconds while in Spriggan form. So from the very get-go, it's a minion thing. You got to be in Spriggan form. You got to be a primalist. And you summon in bees. So we have bees gaining flat life and percent damage per attunement, which is important because as we know from some of Dread's videos in the past, the best way to keep your minions alive is to scale that main attribute so that they get that base flat life. Yeah. We also have bees gaining bleed effect per strength. So we're stacking.
Bleed effect is interesting.
Yeah, bleed effect is kind of like a more multiplier.
You don't need that much strength to make it good either, which is great.
So we're stacking up strength and attunement. And then when you cast Thorn Shield, the nearest bee also gains Thorn Shield. A percent chance to apply frailty on hit for bees. So your bees are frailtying enemies for you. And then minions leech 3% physical damage as health. Which is not on hit.
That part right there, that makes the whole bee archetype.
It makes it usable. This is suspiciously good.
You played recently in that tourney, and you were using the poison.
Yeah.
Lethal concentration. It
just for that one line of text, so my minions could
alive,
leech.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all it needs.
It's surprising. So this is like a non-crit poison bee item, and
like
it
bleed.
Doesn't look like garbage. It kind of looks good. Also, the artwork is fantastic. It's got really good artwork on it.
The worst thing about this item is the fact that it's attached to Spriggan form.
It's unfortunate, isn't it? Like, really, it's only Spriggan form. Like, so you can
use it outside of Spriggan form. You just won't get the implicit.
Well, you just need more bees from other sources, like maybe bee gloves or bee idols or something.
Well, that was what my caveat was. Would you use this with the beekeepers? Is there other bee items besides this?
There's bee items.
There's actually another one that we can talk about here.
Let's go ahead. You want to read it off for us?
The Hive Mind. The Hive Mind is a unique verdant hood, which is a rogue specific.
So you can only use it as a rogue.
You only use it as a rogue, unlike the last thing. Decoy releases 7 bees when it explodes. When you hit a bee with Acid Flask, it gains a toxic coating. So I'm going to assume this just gives them poison chance and something.
I can tell you what it does.
Oh, really?
Toxic coating. Kane replied to me. Thank you, Kane. Toxic coating. The exact values are being balanced right now, but toxic coating gives chance to poison, melee attack speed, and less damage taken.
Oh, that's insane. So yeah. As
suspiciously not garbage.
Bleach. So, oh no, that would be the
no.
But anyway,
but that would be physical. This is poison. You could just use lethal concentration with this and be fine, I think.
You want to use lethal concentration, hive mind, decoy, poison.
I mean,
blade
this
dancer?
is assuming like a rogue is even gonna work. Yeah, it's like
all right. I'm listening.
Yeah, and then mana efficiency for decoy, which is cool because it's a lot of mana. Health,
a lot of
poison res. Now, the biggest problem with this one is to get the best effect out of it, you need to be using the decoy relic that gives you the cooldown. Problem with that is, the other good bee item is, as you know, a relic.
I don't know. What are you talking about?
The Bloodkeeper's Nest. You would use this and you'd use the attunement scaling.
Oh, is Bloodkeeper's Nest not Primalist only?
It's not.
It's not. No.
It's not Primalist only.
It doesn't say that it is.
Yeah, it's not Primalist only.
I hadn't even considered that.
Okay. The fact, the implicit and the Thorn Shield thing. Now, the problem is though, like I said, is either you have a 15-second cooldown on your decoy, and summon bees then, or you have like a 6-second decoy, but then don't get Bloodkeeper's Nest. And the problem with this is that attribute scaling per attunement is absolutely bananas, and that's the main reason you'd use Bloodkeeper's Nest. is for the attribute scaling. Specifically the health and increased damage, which attributes is a very strong thing for minions if you don't know. And now you can't use both of them because of the fact that it's tied to decoy. Unless if decoy gets something else where you can reduce the decoy cooldown or something. But yeah, that's like the biggest problem with this. And also, so like, what else B wise? Like, we're also playing
So the thing that I was thinking
minion
of,
rogue. Go
right,
ahead.
minions.
Yeah.
So in my head, how would the jeweler gloves? If you're not using the beekeeper's gloves, now we have jeweler's gloves that we can look at.
Yeah.
The return. So there's a lot of things that I feel like you could
Yes,
could
there's a B on Acid Flask. Yeah, you're correct.
Cool. So I guess the other unique item that I want to mention, we talked about lethal concentration. Lethal concentration is like a way to give yourself or like minions leech poison damage. I want to shout out Serpent's Milk as a unique amulet that you might use with this. So it looks like a hive mind. When you use decoy, when you summon your bees and you hit your bees with an acid flask, they gain melee attack speed and chance to poison on hit. So you could use a Serpent's Milk along with that to like use your minions only as a buff machine, so that they're not going to be doing much damage, but they are going to be applying a lot of poisons, so that you as a blade dancer could do some kind of poison stuff as well. Is that what we're supposed to do? Is
I
that
have
the
no
build?
idea. There is Acid Flask on. I mean, there is bees on Acid Flask chance, like,
and then like you can
Nerd Herd
shift to
said.
proc your acid flask, and maybe you hit
And
these
you just
things
use
as well.
decoy as a burst of bees on single target.
But maybe your decoy with your Kelton blasting agent, maybe it has poison chance as well. Maybe you're just like a throwing poison build.
Yeah. Like I said, I like the idea of playing a minion Blade Dancer because you can just run all the DR and stuff in Blade Dancer and just be super tanky and just have minions. And that would be okay.
This is one of my favorite things about LE versus POE. The discovery aspect. Last Epoch is not a found game. There's still tons and tons and tons of ways to play certain things that nobody's ever played before, and figuring out certain things and certain interactions is it brings me back to the early internet days when you couldn't just look up a guide. There wasn't just a nice YouTube video on how to kill this boss. You just kind of had your word of mouth and people around you and your friends and stuff.
I wonder how long that's going to stay the case for Last Epoch. It's the Wild West right now.
A while.
It's a limited player base right now, especially now that we're in the right smack in the middle of the Path of Exile League, and like there's not too many people out there making videos and exploring these new things, especially because like we're kind of in a content freeze until September when we get another update about multiplayer. So it feels like the Wild West right now. I wonder how long that's going to stay, because like Path of Exile has been around for more than a decade. There's a ton of information out there that you could get like lost in. It feels like a 101 level college course just to figure out what the hell is going on, so you can like kind of stand on all the information that people have generated before you. But like Last Epoch, it's a simpler game right now, and there's just a lot less people playing it.
Yeah. There's probably plenty of builds that none of us have ever played that are like insanely strong right now.
Like Ignite.
I don't play a lot of builds, so
I think Ignite Puncture might not be garbage.
Oh boy.
I might end up playing it this weekend. I'm not sure, but this weekend's Marksman weekend, so I'm either playing Cinder Strike, a good build, or like, Ignite Puncture.
That Wraith build was not something we played ever, by the way. That was like, it took a long time because when the Wraiths were specifically nerfed, people were all like, "Oh, the Wraiths are terrible," and it took one person, Wolc in this case, to play it. And I was like, "Wait a second, this is freaking busted," And then that all happened.
It turns out making your minions not rude is insane.
Every time I tune into a Perry stream that isn't like the race, or the the podcast, every time it's like either I'm in a planner or I'm in a monolith talking about how I want to make a planner for this build.
Yes.
Every time it's like, okay, what can I do for this? How can I make this? How can I do this? What do you think about this, chat? How do you think about things like that? So like every single time, and I think that's great. I think it's awesome.
I don't know if I'm getting called out or not, but I kind of like that. I enjoy that part of the game. It's really
Like
I
fun.
like it too.
The Path of
Whenever I'm
Exile
playing it, I have
days.
so much to do.
It was like, well, I tuned into a Perry stream, and look, he's on POB.
Listen, I always need to clarify that whenever I talk about my experiences in Path of Exile. Like, I mean, I my Steam says 12 or 13,000 hours, which is a tremendous amount of time. But then you've got people like Ziz out there who have like 40,000 hours. It's like, it's not a competition. I get it. But like, I spend a lot. I used to spend a lot of time in POB. Like, it's a little bit more than 12 or 13,000
Just have a
hours.
timer edition.
No, please no. You know, Dread, I actually leave Last Epoch running in the background, so that's why I have so much time in the game.
Oh, okay, all right. Is that how we're going?
Oh, is that the shout out? All right, I think with that gentle jab,
we're about to fire you.
We're gonna start wrapping it up here. So we've about an hour and 15 minutes for this one. SirFreeForAll, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
It was very interesting having you on. It was great.
Excellent. And I think, Dread, thank you also for making time in your busy schedule. Are you playing in the marksman race this weekend? Or are you still back in the world of Path of Exile?
I'm still in Path of Exile. I have stuff to make.
All right, sounds good.
I have stuff to make. Recon leaders are insane.
Items.
Yes.
I will either
triple.
I will either spend this weekend. Oh my god. I will either spend this weekend playing some kind of like crit cinder strike decoy bombing build, or maybe Ignite.
Also, the marksman meta is kind of like stale too, to be fair.
That's why I want to play Ignite Puncture. Okay, listen.
I know.
I'm gonna convince myself.
You can do it.
No, I don't want to. It's bad. I'm not gonna do it.
You don't.
Yeah.
Do it.
In any case,
I'm holding you to
I'm calling you out right now.
I'm playing a meme build in Path of Exile, so it's like fine.
All right, before somebody else debates me into a terrible build, let's start wrapping it up here. Long live Rat City indeed.
Great, come on, you should try it.
Thank you, whether you're watching this on YouTube, live here on twitch.tv/PerryThePig, or on Spotify even. Thank you for being here. I will be jumping over to do some race after this. But for all of us here at Epic Epoch, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Bye.